The forgotten cry in the cold lab. No one saw the pod fall from the sky. It moved through the clouds like a ghost, broken and spinning. The early morning sky was quiet, and the base was still. No alarms, no alerts, just silence. 3 hours later, a signal lit up on the edge of the radar. Strange, old, weak. The kind of signal Earth had not seen in years. Some thought it was just space trash. Others thought it was nothing at all. But Dr. Jalen Reed thought differently. He had always been the curious type, young, soft-spoken, and a little strange to his coworkers. He didn't enjoy loud things or war stories like the soldiers around him. He liked silence. He liked patterns. He liked questions. That day, he noticed the radar blip while eating a sandwich alone in the control room. The tech team had gone for lunch. The system had paused the alert. He stared at the signal, then at the screen. It was repeating. Steady, but barely there. He saved it. An hour later, security teams found the pod. It had landed just outside the old side of the base, where no one ever went. It was shaped like a small egg, cracked open like something had tried to escape or survive. Smoke still came from its edges. The metal was burnt black, the symbols on its side unreadable. Inside, they found her. She was unconscious, curled in the corner like a sleeping child. Her skin shimmered silver and blue, thin like glass. Her face was smooth, with sharp lines, like it had been carved from starlight. Her breathing was shallow. Too shallow. No one touched her at first. Lock her up, someone said. She could be dangerous. They placed her in a clear room made of cold glass. Machines were added. Needles, scanners, guards. But no one came to help her. No one tried to speak to her. She was just a subject now, a problem to solve later. They didn't know who she was. But Jalen kept thinking about the signal, and the shimmer of her skin, and the way her fingers had curled, like she had been protecting something. His job was not to interfere. He cleaned, he checked vitals, he followed orders. The alien was not part of his duties, but he went to see her anyway. Each night, when the halls were quiet and the lights dim, he stood outside her glass prison and watched. She never moved. Until one night, he had just finished writing notes on another patient when he passed her room again. He paused, like always, just to look, just to wonder. Then he saw it. Her hand moved. Not much, just a twitch, soft, barely a second. But it moved again. And this time, it didn't fall back down. It stayed up, fingers shaking slightly. Jalen froze. He looked at the monitors. No change. He looked at the camera. The guards weren't watching. His heart raced. He should have called someone. Protocol said report anything unusual. But he didn't. Not this time. He opened the door. The air inside was colder than he expected. The machines hummed quietly. Her eyes were still closed, but her hand was still raised. Jalen stepped closer. He didn't know why he was doing this. Something pulled him forward. A feeling in his chest he couldn't explain. He had never believed in fate, or magic, or strange dreams. But this felt different. She looked so peaceful, so small, like someone who didn't belong in this place. He reached out. His fingers brushed hers. Warmth. A small spark moved through his skin, like touching a live wire, but soft, not painful, alive. Her hand closed around his, and her eyes opened. They glowed. Soft light, not bright, not harsh, like moonlight trapped behind clouds. Her eyes met his, and Jalen felt something deep inside shift. A connection. A message. No words were spoken, but he felt them. Help me. He stayed frozen for a moment. The room seemed to hold its breath. Then the machines beeped louder. Her heart rate climbed. The screen flickered. Outside the door, a light turned red. He pulled his hand back. The glow in her eyes faded. Her fingers dropped. But Jalen knew now. She was not just a lost alien. She was alive, awake, aware, and waiting. He stepped back out of the room as the alarm went off. Guards ran in. Doctors shouted. Someone called command. Jalen didn't say a word. He just looked at his hand, where her fingers had held his, and he knew everything was about to change. The choice that risked his career. Dr. Jalen Reed sat on the edge of his small bunk, staring at his hand. It had been 2 days since he touched her, the alien girl in the glass room. He had not told anyone. The memory of her fingers wrapping around his still lived in his skin. It hadn't been a reflex. It had been a decision. And he had felt something else, something warm, alive, and strange. The base had changed since the alarm went off. Guards now stood outside her room around the clock. Doctors he had never seen before arrived in suits and whispered to each other in the hallway. Orders came down from the top. No contact, no access, no exceptions. Jalen wasn't even allowed to clean the hallway anymore. He didn't fight it. He kept his head low and his mouth shut. But each night, he returned to the camera feeds. He wasn't supposed to have access, but a forgotten login still worked on an old terminal in the storage room. From there, he watched her. She hadn't moved since the night he touched her. No hand twitch, no eye opening, nothing. But he knew she was still awake. She was waiting again. The medical team tried standard alien treatments. Fluids, pulses, light therapy. None of it worked. One doctor suggested she was slipping into a coma. Another called her a relic from a lost species. She's dying, someone said. Nothing we can do. Jalen couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her eyes staring back. So on the 4th night, he made a choice. He waited until the storm rolled in. Lightning cracked over the hills, and power flickered across the base. Backup systems kept the lights on, but not the cameras. Not all of them. The hallway to the specimen wing went dark for 6 minutes. He used every second. He swiped a low-level keycard from the lab tech's locker earlier that day. The tech wouldn't notice until morning. With his coat zipped high and gloves on, Jalen moved quickly down the empty hall. Every step echoed. Every heartbeat roared in his ears. When he reached the door, it hissed open slower than he remembered. He stepped inside. She was still lying there, surrounded by machines. Wires covered her arms. Tiny needles pierced her skin. Her skin looked duller now, less silver, less alive. But her fingers moved when he entered. Only a little, but enough. Jalen locked the door behind him. "I don't know your name," he whispered. "I don't even know if you understand me." He sat beside her bed, checking the readings. Her body temperature was falling. Her blood pressure was low, too low. He touched her wrist gently. It was cold. He bit his lip, thinking hard. Then he pulled out a scanner from his coat pocket. It was old and off books, one he used in his personal research, hidden from base logs. He ran it over her chest, arms, neck. The data shocked him. Her body was rejecting every treatment the base had tried, not because it was weak, but because it was too strong. Her immune system was fighting back, seeing everything as a threat, even the medicine. She wasn't dying. She was defending herself. "They're killing you with kindness," Jalen muttered. He reached into his bag again and took out a different vial. It was a low-level human stabilizer, used mostly in calming anxiety attacks. It wouldn't cure anything, but it wouldn't attack her either. "Just a small dose," he said. "If you understand this, please hold on." He gave the injection near her collarbone, where the skin was thinnest. She didn't move, not right away. Jalen sat back, heart pounding. He watched the monitors. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then her breathing changed. Slightly deeper. The soft hum of her pulse began to rise. The lines on the screen evened out, and her skin, her strange silver skin, started to glow again, just a little, like moonlight returning to a dark sky. Her eyes fluttered. Jalen leaned forward. They opened. And this time, she didn't just look at him. She blinked slowly, then raised one hand, no longer twitching, no longer cold, and pointed to her chest. Then her lips moved. No sound came out. Jalen bent closer. She whispered again. This time, he caught the word. Zura. Her name. He sat back, stunned. His heart felt heavy and light all at once. Zura, he repeated. She nodded once. But then the alarm sounded. Jalen stood up fast. The door behind him lit red. The backup systems were recovering. Cameras would be back on soon. He had seconds. He looked down at her. I'll come back, he said. She didn't smile, but her eyes didn't look afraid anymore. Jalen slipped out the door and vanished down the hallway just as the lights blinked back on. No one saw him. Not that night. But things were changing fast. He had broken rules. And now he had a name. Zura. A word that would soon mean much more than he ever expected. Her first word broke his heart. The next morning, Jalen sat quietly in the back of the lab meeting. Commanders and doctors filled the room with charts, warnings, and long words. They argued over protocols, safety, and alien threats. But Jalen wasn't listening. His thoughts were still with her. Zura. The name echoed in his mind like a soft drumbeat. He had only heard it once, in a whisper so faint he almost doubted it. But it was real. The way she had looked at him, it wasn't fear. It was something deeper, something sad. No one else knew her name. No one else had touched her. After the meeting, Jalen slipped out and returned to his small office. He opened his scanner logs and reread the health data. Her body was stabilizing. Slow, but sure. The injection had helped. Her immune system wasn't fighting anymore. He had bought her time. But time was running out. He knew he couldn't keep sneaking into her room. Someone would notice. He had already broken too many rules. If they found out, he would be fired. Maybe worse. Yet something inside him wouldn't let go. That night, he returned to her again. This time, the hallway cameras were working, but he wore a mask, covered his badge, and carried a maintenance box. No one stopped him. No one looked close enough to see who he really was. Inside her room, the air felt warmer. Zura's eyes were open. She was awake now, fully. Her skin glowed faintly, a soft silver pulse beneath the surface. Her lips were dry, and her face looked tired. But she was watching him. Jalen sat beside her again, keeping his voice low. You said your name was Zura, he whispered. Is that right? Her fingers moved slowly. She pointed to her chest again. Zura, she whispered. Her voice was soft and cracked, like broken glass sliding across stone. He nodded. I'm Jalen. She didn't speak his name. Maybe she couldn't. But her eyes showed understanding. Jalen pulled out a small translator tool he had modified from old alien tech. It wasn't approved, and it barely worked, but it was better than guessing. He held it close to her and spoke. Are you in pain? The tool buzzed, blinked, then translated in a soft, robotic voice. Pain. Heart. He blinked. That wasn't what he meant, but she had answered anyway. Her hand rested lightly over her chest. Can you tell me what happened to you? She looked at him for a long time before she tried again. Escape, fire, betrayal. 3 words. Simple, but heavy. Jalen frowned. Someone hurt you. She nodded once. Her eyes closed for a moment, and a tear slipped down her cheek. Silver, like liquid metal. His chest tightened. He had seen injured soldiers. He had seen alien prisoners. But he had never seen anyone cry like that. Not without sound. Not without asking for help. He reached for a cloth and gently wiped the tear from her face. You're safe here, he said, even though he wasn't sure it was true. She opened her eyes again. Her voice cracked with effort. No. Danger. Danger from who? She looked at the ceiling, then at the wall, the cameras. Then she whispered something so quiet the translator barely caught it. "Brother." Jalen's blood turned cold. He leaned in. "Your brother did this to you." Zura didn't answer directly. She turned her head away and stared at the wall again, but her silence was enough. Jalen sat there, stunned. Alien royalty. Attacked. Betrayed. And now locked in a lab, slowly dying while her enemies moved closer. He had no proof, no details, but he didn't need them. Her pain was real. Her fear was real. And now so was his. "I won't let them hurt you again," he said softly. Her hand moved again, slowly, carefully. And then, to his shock, she reached for his. Their fingers touched. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't need a translator for that. He stayed with her longer than planned. Too long. Outside, footsteps echoed in the hallway. He stood quickly and turned off the translator. He gave her hand one last squeeze. "I'll come back. I promise." As he slipped out the door, he caught a glimpse of a figure standing at the end of the hall. A tall man in black. Watching. Not moving. Jalen walked fast and didn't look back. But his heart beat faster now. Someone knew. And Zura's story was only beginning. The bounty across galaxies. The morning air around the base felt heavier than usual. Something unseen moved through the walls, like a quiet warning no one wanted to say out loud. Soldiers sharpened their attention. Cameras were checked twice, and more strange ships appeared in the sky above the mountains, pretending to be passing cargo. But they stayed longer than they should. Dr. Jalen Reed noticed every detail. He knew the mood had changed. He saw it in the way the generals walked with tight faces, in how the lab techs avoided eye contact, and in the new list of locked files that suddenly appeared on the base systems. Something big was coming, and it had everything to do with her. Zura. The name had become a part of his every breath. He still saw her silver tears when he closed his eyes at night. He still remembered how she whispered the word brother with such pain it made his chest hurt. He had not seen her in 2 days. His access was now blocked. His codes no longer worked. They said the alien specimen had been moved for safety protocols. But Jalen knew better. They were hiding her, not protecting her. He waited until night. Again. He still had access to old cameras, the ones hidden deep in the security system. They had never been disconnected, and through those he watched her. She was now in a new room. Colder, darker. Her arms were strapped down again. Wires ran through her skin like vines. Machines hummed louder, but she didn't fight. She didn't scream. She simply stared at the ceiling with quiet, glowing eyes. But Jalen saw something else too. Movement in the hallway outside her room. Not soldiers. Not doctors. Mercenaries. They wore dark armor with no badges. They moved like men used to killing. And they weren't from Earth. One of them carried a scanner. It showed a hologram of Zura's face, and a symbol Jalen had seen only once in an old file. It meant bounty. His blood froze. They had found her. Whoever wanted her dead had placed a price on her head, and it had reached across the galaxy. Jalen stood up fast, panic rising in his chest. She wasn't safe anymore. Not even here. He had to do something. But what? He had no authority, no backup, and if he tried to stop these men, he could be arrested, or worse. Still, he couldn't sit and watch. He ran to the storage wing. There, in a dusty locker he used for emergency supplies, he found a toolkit, an old security pass, and a tiny voice jammer he had built in his free time. It wasn't much, but it might buy him a few minutes. Every second counted now. He moved fast, avoiding cameras, skipping the main hallway. He crawled through a maintenance tunnel that led beneath the labs. The air was tight and smelled like dust and oil. His hands shook, but his mind stayed focused. He reached the vent under her new room. He looked up. Zura was alone. No guards inside yet, but outside, Two mercenaries argued softly. One of them wanted to wait. The other said they had only an hour before the base lockdown began. Jalen's heart pounded. He activated the jammer. It buzzed in his hand. Weak, but working. It would block sound for 5 meters. Just enough. He pushed open the vent and climbed inside. Zura didn't react at first. Her eyes were closed. Her chest rose and fell slowly. "Zura," he whispered. Her eyes opened. He ran to her side and pulled out the tools. He began to cut the straps, fast but careful. "We don't have time," he said. "They're coming for you." Her lips moved slowly. They already came. His hands froze. "What?" "My brother," she said. "He sent them. He wants me gone before anyone knows the truth." "What truth?" But she didn't answer. Instead, she sat up, even though her arms trembled. She looked at him with tired eyes. "You still trust me?" she asked. Jalen didn't hesitate. "Yes." She nodded, then reached for his hand. "Then we leave. Now." The door beeped. Someone was entering. Jalen pulled her behind the medical cabinet as the mercenary stepped in, gun raised. The jammer made his comms useless. He frowned, confused, and turned around to call backup. Too late. Zura touched the air behind him. Her fingers sparked with light. The man fell. Not dead, just frozen. "What did you do?" Jalen whispered. "Held his nerves still," she said. "For now." "How?" "Royal blood," she replied. They ran. Through the hallway, through the lower exits, into the old garage where forgotten ships sat under dusty tarps. Jalen ripped one open and found a small flyer, just enough to get them off the ground. As they rose into the night sky, alarms rang behind them. Lights followed. Ships launched. But Zura closed her eyes and placed her hand on the ship's controls. They vanished. Not through speed. Through something else. "Cloaked?" Jalen asked, blinking. Zura smiled faintly. "My people were not only warriors. We were dreamers. And this is the last dream. Their escape through the stars." The stars stretched around them like rivers of light. Jalen sat in the small passenger seat of the stolen flyer, eyes wide as they slipped quietly through the dark edges of space. He had never flown off-world before. The silence out here was different. Not empty, but deep. Like the universe was watching. Zura sat at the controls. Her hands moved with slow confidence. She looked stronger now. Not fully healed, but alive in a way she hadn't been back on the base. Her silver skin glowed softly in the cabin light. Her eyes stayed focused on the sky ahead. "How long can we stay hidden?" Jalen asked. "Not long," she said. "Cloaking drains energy. We'll need to land soon." He nodded, still trying to take everything in. Just 2 days ago, she was strapped to a table. Now they were fugitives in space, hunted by mercenaries, and, if he was right, betrayed by someone in the highest levels of command. And yet, Jalen felt no regret. He had chosen this path. He had taken her hand. And now, he was part of something far bigger than he had ever imagined. "Where are we going?" he asked. Zura tapped a small screen beside her. An old star map appeared, worn, flickering at the edges. She pointed to a system near the bottom corner. "Virene Station," she said. "It's hidden near a dead moon. Long abandoned, but once my people ruled there. And now it's forgotten. Like me." Jalen watched her for a moment. There was sadness in her voice, but something else too. Determination. Why go there? Zura looked at him, her eyes softer now. "Because that's where the truth is stored. Old memories. Data cores. Voices of the past. My brother destroyed most of our history, but not all. The station holds proof. If we can reach it, we can show the galaxy what really happened." "You mean why he wants you dead?" She nodded. Jalen leaned back, taking it all in. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero, but he was here now. and he wasn't turning back. The ship beeped softly. Warning signs lit up. Fuel low. We need to land, Zura said. There's a rest planet nearby. Quiet, unregistered. We'll refuel there. They dropped out of cloak and moved toward a rocky world with thick clouds and dim light. The planet had no name, no city lights, and no sound. Just sharp hills and long shadows. They landed in a hidden cave near a dried-out river. As the engines cooled, Jalen helped Zura out. She still limped slightly, but her steps were steady. They'd walked through the cave, checking for danger. The walls were rough, but safe. They would rest here for a few hours, maybe more. As they sat by the small heater Jalen had rigged from ship parts, he turned to her. What was your world like before? Zura looked into the heat glow, her face unreadable. Bright, she said finally. We were builders, creators. Our people didn't want war. But my brother, he wanted control. He made others afraid. He blamed humans for the fall of our trade routes. And then, he took the throne. You were supposed to rule. No, she said, but they wanted me to speak for peace. And he feared my voice. So he silenced you. Zura didn't answer. She didn't need to. Outside, wind howled through the cave mouth. Jalen checked the scanner. No signs of movement. You really think the galaxy will care? He asked. After all this time. If they hear the truth, she said, some will. Not all, but enough. Jalen stared at her. Even after everything, she still believed in people. He admired that. Before he could speak again, the scanner beeped. One ship, small, fast, following them. Zura stood quickly. We have to go. They rushed back to the flyer. The engines protested, but started. As they lifted off, the enemy ship appeared on the radar, close and gaining. Who is it? Jalen asked. Zura didn't answer right away. Then she said, someone from the old palace. Someone who once called me sister. The enemy ship fired. A blast rocked their hull. Lights flickered. Smoke filled the back cabin. Jalen took control of the side cannons. I can hold them off for a while. Not long enough, Zura said. She closed her eyes and whispered something in her language. The ship responded. Lights dimmed. Walls shimmered. What did you do? We're shifting, she said, not teleporting. Slipping between edges of space. Not safe, but safer than here. As the ship twisted through light and shadow, Jalen felt his stomach turn. Stars blurred. Time slowed. And then, they were gone. Space was quiet again. Virene Station appeared ahead, floating like a broken crown near the dead moon. It was old, damaged, forgotten, but still there. Zura breathed out. We made it. And deep inside the station, something waited to be found. A voice that shook the galaxy. Virene Station floated like a ghost above the dead moon, its metal shell broken in places, its power barely holding. Long ago, this place had been alive with voices and light. Now it drifted in silence, forgotten by time, ignored by war. Only the stars remembered it. Jalen looked at it through the small ship window. It was bigger than he expected, a ring-shaped city wrapped around a dark core. Pieces of it were missing, torn away by age or battle, but Zura's eyes lit up when she saw it. This is where it began, she whispered. They docked at the outer edge. The entrance creaked open with a slow hiss. Stale air greeted them, thin, dry, but breathable. Lights flickered weakly along the floor. Zura walked with more strength now, guided by memory. Jalen followed, scanning for danger, unsure what waited ahead. They passed empty halls, shattered glass, broken symbols carved into the walls. Old banners hung in silence, their colors faded. Zura stopped once, touching a piece of cloth with her fingers. This was my mother's crest, she said softly, a symbol of unity. It used to fly across every house on our planet. Jalen didn't speak. He felt like a visitor in a sacred place. Her world had been reduced to ruins, and yet she was still here, still standing. They reached the core chamber, a large circular room filled with old machines and dusty control panels. In the center stood a glowing pillar, its light flickering like a dying candle. Zura walked to it. "This is the memory vault," she said. "It stores the voices of our leaders, the records of our truth." "Does it still work?" Jalen asked. Zura placed her hand on the surface. The pillar came to life, humming gently. Light spread across the floor in thin lines, forming shapes, people, places, events. Holograms danced around them like echoes from another world. One image showed Zura as a child, standing beside her brother. They both smiled. They both wore crowns. Another image showed fire, explosions, cities falling. Then her brother's face appeared, older, colder. He gave a speech to a crowd, blaming humans for stealing their power, calling for war. "This is the moment everything changed," Zura said. He twisted pain into anger. He turned fear into control. Jalen stepped closer. "Can we send this out? To the galaxy?" Zura nodded. "Yes, but only with the final key." "What's that?" She looked at him. "My voice." She walked to a raised platform near the center. A microphone stood there, dusty but still working. She touched it. The room shifted. The machines awakened, and the vault prepared to broadcast. "When I speak," she said, "everyone with access to the galactic web will hear. Not just my people, not just humans. Everyone." Jalen looked at her. "Are you ready?" She took a deep breath and began. Her voice echoed through the station, soft but steady. "I am Zura of the House of Island, the last of my line. My brother told the galaxy that I died. He said I was weak. He said I betrayed our people, but that was a lie." The room grew warmer. The holograms shifted, showing her brother's forces storming the palace, showing her escape pod launched into the sky. "I chose peace, and for that, I was hunted." Her voice grew stronger. "We are not enemies. We were never meant to be. The war my brother began is built on fear and lies. But now you can see the truth." The memory vault opened its full archive. Images of peace talks, trade agreements, moments where humans and her kind had worked together. Then it showed the betrayal, the assassination, the silencing of the old council. Jalen watched in silence. He had never seen anything like it. It wasn't just history. It was a message. Then Zura said something that surprised him. "I do not ask for revenge. I do not want blood. I only ask for a chance, for all of us, to remember who we were, and imagine who we still could be." The final image showed her mother, standing before a crowd, smiling. Then the light faded, and the signal was sent. Millions of devices across thousands of systems blinked to life. Zura's face appeared. Her voice echoed. Her story reached ears that had long forgotten her name. And far away, on a high council ship hidden in deep space, her brother watched. His face twisted in rage. "Shut it down," he ordered. But it was too late. The truth was out. Back on Varine Station, Jalen turned to her. "They heard you." Zura didn't smile. "Not yet. Now we wait," she said, "and we see what kind of galaxy we really live in." Then the station shook. An explosion rocked the outer ring. They had been found. The hand that saved 2 worlds. The explosion shook the station hard, sending dust raining from the ceiling. Old walls groaned. Lights flickered. Alarms that had been silent for years suddenly screamed back to life. Jalen grabbed the edge of the control panel as the floor tilted beneath him. Zura didn't move. She stood tall in the center of the platform, eyes locked on the vault. The truth was already sent. It couldn't be taken back. But now they had to survive long enough for it to matter. "They're here," she said, her voice calm. "Your brother's people?" Jalen asked, pulling her away from the console. She nodded. They must have tracked the broadcast. They'll destroy the station to erase what we did. They ran down the corridor, back toward the ship. The sound of metal boots echoed behind them. Fast, heavy, and close. Zura pressed her hand against a door, and it opened to a hidden passage. The walls were narrow, covered in symbols. This was once used by royal messengers, she said, guiding them through. Secret ways for escaping danger. Useful, Jalen said, breathing hard. Wish you told me about this earlier. You didn't ask, she said, almost smiling. They reached the hangar bay just as a small enemy ship landed. Its ramp dropped, and armored soldiers poured out, their weapons ready. Jalen and Zura ducked behind a crate as shots fired through the air. Jalen pulled out the tiny blaster he had taken from the stolen flyer. It wasn't much. He had never even used it before. Zura placed her hand over his. You don't have to fight them, she said. You already did more than anyone else ever did. You listened. I'm not leaving you, he said. Not after everything. They moved together, dodging blasts, slipping past guards. Zura raised her hand and sent a wave of light into the nearest enemy, freezing him in place. Another guard turned, aiming for her back. Jalen fired. His shot missed, but it distracted the soldier long enough for Zura to strike. They reached the ship and climbed inside. Engines roared to life. As the ship lifted off, Jalen looked out the window. More enemy vessels were circling the station. They were not here to negotiate. If we leave, they'll destroy it, he said. The data is already out, Zura said. But the station still holds memories. Voices. Culture. If they erase it, they erased who we were. Jalen fought for a moment, then turned the ship back toward the main console. What are you doing? Zura asked. You said this place was built by dreamers, he said. Dreamers leave backups. He connected the ship's systems to the station. Within moments, he found what he was looking for. A hidden core deep below the vault. Untouched, protected. We can download it, he said. All of it. Zura looked at him with something close to awe. You think like one of us. I think like someone who believes in you. The download started. It was slow, too slow. Outside, more ships closed in. Zura placed her hand on the console, whispering something in her language. The download sped up, the light turning gold. The ship began to shake again. Almost there, Jalen said. Just then, a blast hit the rear of the station. Fire spread through the lower deck. The heat reached the vault. Alarms screamed. Metal cracked. Time's up, Jalen said. We have to go. The download finished. Jalen grabbed the drive and powered up the thrusters. The ship launched out of the hangar just as the station began to collapse behind them. Zura turned back, watching it break apart piece by piece. It was my home, she said quietly. Jalen placed a hand on her shoulder. Now it's your history, and we saved it. They escaped into deep space, avoiding the enemy ships by slipping into a narrow drift path only Zura knew. Hours passed before they reached safety, a small human outpost orbiting a quiet moon. News had already spread. Zura's voice had traveled faster than her enemies. People across planets had heard the message. Some ignored it. Others doubted it. But many believed. Humans who once feared her kind now spoke her name with respect. Leaders requested peace talks. Rebels loyal to her mother began rising again. Jalen sat beside Zura in the council chamber, watching as she spoke to humans and aliens alike, calm, brave, and strong. I do not return as a queen, she said, but as a witness, and as a builder of peace. The room applauded. Afterward, Jalen met her by the garden outside. The stars above were soft. The world felt quiet again. You did it, he said. We did, she replied. He smiled. What now? She reached for his hand. Now, she said, we help others speak too. Jalen held her hand. And somewhere far across the stars, others who once felt silenced began to speak.